What were the points that you drew? What stood out to you about the AG's findings?
I think overall that things were just mishandled from the get-go. They botched this. They bungled this. We're talking about a multi-million-dollar, up to $110 million contract, and things were just done in a very clumsy manner from the start.
The Attorney General's words were flawed, incomplete, and or not handled in accordance with WVU's own purchasing rules. That stood out to me as well. And specifically, and interesting too, is that the Attorney General said that his interpretation was that WVU wouldn't even have had to bid it because they were going to gain from they were going to have a financial gain. They could have just cut a deal. But they did decide to bid it. But when they did, they didn't follow all the rules. What did you make of the finding about the makeup of the committee, the evaluation committee?
Yeah, I had never seen anything like that, Hoppy. They of course, as the report says, they started with 3 members, and it appeared that 2 of those 3, and one was the athletic director, Oliver Luck, but 2 of the 3 seemed to be hesitant to even move forward with this contract. Yet midstream, they go ahead and appoint 3 professors from WVU to the panel. I've never seen. I don't deal with WVU purchasing situations, but down here at the Capitol, that's unheard of changing a committee amid the evaluation of the bids. And then, of course, there was the other part that after they moved the committee from 3 members to 6 members, that 2 of the original 3 members never even had an opportunity to vote on the final tentative contract with IMG College. So very, very suspect. I've never seen anything like that.
Really? Never?
Not in my 10 or 12, how long have I been here? 15 years in West Virginia covering purchasing down here. I've never seen them change a committee like that. Also, another troublesome thing that came out in the report was that they had a scoring system that they had put together, and they were going to give weight for various factors, and out of nowhere they scrapped that scoring system. They just say, be gone with it. And lo and behold, they make some sort of decision by consensus, which Morrissey said was kind of muddling the process. I think his words were confusion and ambiguity by dropping their scoring system. It doesn't really say much about why they chose to do so, but very suspect.
Eric Eyre is with us from the Charleston Gazette, getting his take on this. On one hand, Morrissey said, I don't have the wording in front of me, but he alluded to that IMG was probably the best choice, or probably made the most sense, or something like that. At least I inferred that from some things he said. But then when he looks at the committee part, he says it's unclear if IMG College would have been selected by a vote solely on the original 3 committee members. I thought there was, unless I'm missing, do you follow me there, or am I missing something?
Yeah, it was strange. I was a little confused of why the Attorney General was making a decision or making a comment on that IMG was the best. And first off, we all know that IMG does this at a number of other universities, so
Sure.
It's certainly qualified. And
Yeah, absolutely.
a good company. But to date, none of us have seen that. I've requested the copies of all the bid packages that were submitted by the various companies, because there's, I guess at the end of the day, there were 6 that bid on this contract. We haven't seen their bid. I guess the Attorney General has seen the bid, and he's said that it was a good bid. I think that's what he was trying to say, that there was nothing, that it wasn't like this, that IMG had some ridiculous bid that should never have been considered. And we all know that they're, have a good reputation, and they're would obviously have had, been in the running, certainly for the contract.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the conflict of interest aspects of this, which were pretty prominent in the Attorney General's findings. The AG found that Board of Governors members Drew Payne and Dave Alvarez have conflicts of interest. Each has a financial stake in West Virginia Media Holdings, West Virginia Media, which has current contracts with the university and is certainly an interested party in the rights issue because they have a business relationship or working on a business relationship with IMG College to execute the rights if, in fact, IMG College ends up with the rights. So talk about the points there and your takeaway from the conflict of interest aspect.
Well, they both obviously did have a conflict of interest. In those cases, you need to step aside, recuse yourself, don't have anything to do with it. But what we found out from the report is that Oliver Luck was giving almost daily updates, at least the emails that we have. We don't know what occurred on the phone. The emails, they were back and forth. We're getting daily updates prior to the contract being bid out, and then later, even after the RFP or the solicitation of bids had been put out, there were updates being given by Oliver Luck to Drew Payne. Now the question would be, does that give an unfair advantage to IMG College over the other competitors? And I guess it would if Drew Payne was that subsequently either two things, getting information that would be beneficial to IMG, i.e. financial information from the other bids from the other companies, and then was he forwarding that information along to IMG or West Virginia Media Holdings? That's the company, of course, that he's a stakeholder in, and was partnering or planning to partner with IMG College. There was no evidence that was presented in the report that he had passed along the information that he was getting from Oliver Luck to IMG College and West Virginia Media Holdings.
Not related to this, but there's an interesting parallel. I was talking to somebody this morning, Eric, and we're talking with Eyre of the Gazette, is that when there was a dispute at the Department of Health and Human Resources in West Virginia over an advertising contract, there were allegations, or the people had raised questions about the bidding process there. And 3 people were put on administrative leave, and 2 people were fired from their positions, all because of how that was, what went down there. I mean, it was viewed as a very serious matter. It seems to me that in this, and again, you got to take what I say with somewhat of a grain of salt because our company has a vested interest. Your company does not. You've been reporting this thing. That's why I want to have you on here, is that I'm not sure you can issue this report then have WVU go, hey, well, okay, you got us. We'll straighten it out and go ahead. I mean, is it over?
That's how I read it, too. They acknowledged that they did inappropriate things, and then they just said, we'll rebid it. I'm not sure what that means by rebidding it. Certainly, you would hope that the 6 people that were on the initial committee would not be the same 6 people that would evaluate a second time. I'm not sure if they're going to even release the bids, but probably information by now has gotten out what IMG's bid entailed, so the other companies will be looking at that. Hoppy, to me, it reads like a classic. I've covered the West Virginia Ethics Commission, and I suspect one of their lead and very promising and an excellent investigator / lawyer at the Ethics Commission now works for Patrick Morrissey, and this certainly report reads like his work, and frankly, they did a really good, thorough job. I was a little confused by their conclusion at the end of the day that said that nothing was intentionally done. I'm not sure. That seems like a subjective decision, a subjective comment. But these are the kinds of things, yes, that I've seen before, that the Ethics Commission will wind up reprimanding and fining people for doing things. The Ethics Commission doesn't take the argument that I didn't know it was wrong to do this, therefore I shouldn't have done it.
Right. Yeah. I think that it comes down to, and I think to some degree the Attorney General is trying to split the baby a little bit here to say that they botched how they did it, but they really didn't mean to botch it, and but that doesn't change that it was botched, but it certainly stopped short of saying there was wrongdoing. It stopped short of that. And I found it interesting too, and I think this is some parsing as well, where the AG says there was an appearance that these things created an appearance of impropriety. My counter to that is, if all the things that the Attorney General found occurred, that's not an appearance of impropriety. That's impropriety. That's improper. That's not following the rules. That's my take.
Well, maybe one of the other interesting things about this was that the Attorney General is acting as the representative. The client is WVU to the Attorney General, which puts him in an unusual situation.
It does, yes.
And he's created this new public integrity task force headed by Marty Wright, who's the gentleman that I was talking about earlier, who really did outstanding work at the Ethics Commission. So it puts him in a spot, sort of. He's trying to be the independent investigator, yet he's the representative and the client. He's the representative. He represents WVU and the client, so it puts him in an awkward position as far as I'm concerned.
I think there are, and you don't have to comment on this. This is me. I think there are 3 or 4 questions going forward. Number one, can Drew Payne remain on the Board of Governors, seeing as how he failed to recuse himself and was involved in, involved in a way that he should not have been? Number 2, should Oliver Luck should not be involved in running the rebid, because he was involved in the bid the first time, and the Attorney General has found it was a sloppy and error-filled practice. So, to me, will Luck be involved in the rebid? Third, who's on the committee for the rebid? And fourth, West Virginia Radio and John Racy said, if I recall correctly, in a letter that if there was a rebid, if the bids were thrown out and there was a rebid, that West Virginia Radio would not rebid. So will Racy stick to that and not rebid? So I see those 4 or 5, whatever that is, questions going forward. What questions do you have?
Well, I agree with you. I'm not sure what I haven't seen what Clements to do, although I saw some of the comments on your website this morning from Oliver Luck at a meeting last night. It seemed like he was saying that he was going to head up this committee again. So that was kind of surprising to me. I'm not sure why that would occur, but I think there's going to be lots of questions for President Clements. I think at the end of the day, the thing that's disappointed everybody is they kind of went through this with the Heather Bresch scandal years ago, and they said they were going to clean up that kind of thing, and there was also, I think, when Oliver Luck came in, he said we're going to run this department like a business. That was in our sports columnist Dave Hickman's column today, but it seems like everything they did was anything but running, like a business, or at least when taxpayer dollars are involved, they need to shore up what they do.
Eric Eyre of the Charleston Gazette, read his story today. Eric, I appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me on, Hoppy.